Welcome to Randland. Today I'm joined by the Mahale, Collin Fraser.
Yeah.
And also Jenny, a YouTube star from Lezbi Nerdy.
Hello.
Today we have an awesome episode. We're going to be talking a lot about the Seanchan and also diving a little bit deeper into Tuon's character. Before we get started, we like to do some fun icebreakers and casual talk. So I wanted to start off on a light note, just talking about television. Jenny, I was curious, you cover so much in the books and your channel's amazing, but are you also a fan who's excited for the upcoming TV show?
So much. I'm really, really excited about the show. I'm very excited to see some stuff updated that feels a little outdated now when you watch. Some of that's very obvious. Oh, they're not all white. That feels great. That feels like, yeah, that's about right. Makes sense. But there's also other stuff that's maybe was fresh and new at the time and now feels that's I'm excited to see some updates on stuff like that.
Yeah. Same. Hard same. So excited. Yeah. I was curious, though. I've noticed, and I'm sure that this was pre-pandemic, but there's been a rise in fantasy television, and Game of Thrones has been off the air for quite some time, but I feel like there's still that sense of the never-ending search for the next Game of Thrones. And I've seen recently just a huge surge across all the streaming platforms, the studios, of fantasy content. So on Netflix, we have The Irregulars, Shadow and Bone, The Witcher. On HBO, they've had His Dark Materials and The Nevers. And Amazon has had Carnival Row, which sucked. And then they've had Lord of the Rings is upcoming and Wheel of Time. So obviously the last two aren't out yet. But is there any fantasy series that you've tried or have been watching recently?
I'm really enjoying the one that's on HBO right now.
The Nevers?
The Nevers?
Yes, the titles are not great. I'm really enjoying that one so far. I haven't started Shadow and Bone. I watched The Witcher, and I remember enjoying it when I watched it, but if you asked me anything about it right now, I can't tell you what happened.
Same.
It's just, it went in my ear and out one out the other. Same with Carnival Row. I remember not liking it, but if you ask me why, I don't know. I don't remember it at all. So
yeah. Actually, it was funny. Right before Christmas, The Witcher came out, and Collin and I binged it. Not all of it, but we just kept being like, well, let's watch one more. What I didn't know is that my boyfriend was waiting for Collin to leave so he could propose. And he was like, can you please not watch one more? He had a dinner reservation, so he was trying to do it before. and I was in sweatpants all day. We watched so much of The Witcher. And then my husband was like, do you want to go for dinner? And I was like, I don't know. I kind of just want to. And he was like, we have to go. Yeah. So I don't remember that much of The Witcher either. But it was good. Yeah, it's interesting. The Nevers, I've watched it, or I'm up to date on it. It's gotten pretty bad critical reviews.
Really?
But I do find it, I think the reviews are a little harsh, probably because there's controversy surrounding Joss Whedon right now.
I did not realize it was Joss Whedon until I haven't watched episode 3. So at the end of episode 2, I normally just turn it off, but I just happened to be doing something and I came back in the room and I saw his name and I literally went, oh no. I was enjoying this show.
Yeah.
I'll say the thing I like about it is it's kind of Doctor Who it can get really dark, but then it also, I think because the production quality and the tone of it feels a little, lighthearted's not the right word, but
the thing about there's controversy around Joss Whedon now. I was a big Buffy fan and I was a big Angel fan, and it has when I saw his name there was that sinking feeling, but those shows knew what they were and they never steered away from it, and that's what I feel in the Nevers. It's like, yeah, no, we're crazy. There's like a giant 13-year-old, and
Right.
like that's fine. Like it doesn't steer away from what it is.
It's got like a strong sense of like identity of itself, right? Like understanding what it is and what it's trying to do. Yeah.
I like, there was that sinking feeling of it. Yeah, that's also probably why I like this show, because I liked all of the other shows that he did. I just don't want to anymore.
I know it's difficult. I did just finish Shadow and Bone, which is funny because I watched the Nevers and Shadow and Bone right back to back, and there was a point where I was like, which one am I watching? Like this one has an orphanage. They both have vows.
Oh, really? I know zero. I know nothing about Shadow and Bone.
It has a slow start, I'll say, and then I really got into it at the end. I think it's interesting because Shadow and Bone is another one that's a book property, adapted to a show. And sometimes I think they don't know where to start. They just kind of throw you into the world,
right.
And it doesn't make for the best pilot always,
Right.
Okay.
And so Shadow and Bone is one of those where you're just like, okay, who should I be invested in? There's a lot going on. They just throw you in. But then once you're in and you know the lay of the land and the characters, then there's like something to grab onto other than world building. But I think what I was going to say is that there's all these shows, and I think they're building like little followings, but they do seem more like passive fans, like, this is on, it's still a pandemic, let's watch this. But I don't know if there's like big loyal followings. So it does make me more excited that I think people want escapism, people are yearning for fantasy, and I think the Wheel of Time could fill like a huge vacuum. Yeah.
And I think if they go for a weekly release, because I was going to, about passive fans, I feel like if you have an entire show to binge, you tend to be passive, because there's no reason to like...
Right.
100%.
Why... Yeah,
there's no build-up. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like, why do I have to theorize? I can just stay and watch another episode of The Witcher. I don't have to guess.
Right.
Like, that's...
Absolutely,
I can just do it. But if they do a weekly release... Because the other show that I was thinking of, about a show that I was really into, was sci-fi fantasy, was Raised by Wolves. Yeah, like that one, I was deep online, like, what the hell is this? What is going on? I guess it was so interesting, but they had that, like, it's a week and you have to think about it. So.
That was really good, and I think that was an original screenplay, concept.
I think so too. I've never seen anything like it before, so...
Highly recommend if you're looking for something to fill the hole that Wheel of Time is leaving in your home. But okay, so that concludes our talk about fantasy television. Now for the actual Wheel of Time icebreakers. We like to ask a little bit uncomfortable questions sometimes on Randland. One of the things, it's not that uncomfortable, don't worry. You don't need a warning. But, in the fandom, there's been a lot of discussion every time someone is cast, analyzing their appearance and how that compares with the book, either the written description or people's headcanon. For some characters, I feel like they're very specifically known for their physical appearance, and Rafe has clearly said performance and embodiment of the character is, the foremost what's in his mind. But I was curious when it comes to a character like Amyrlin. I think we're waiting for that casting, and she's someone that is just so based on her physical appearance, like it's reiterated every time she walks into a room. And I came to mind this episode because I feel like she's such a contrast to Tuon, who he reiterates as the opposite body type. And I was thinking recently about when the Tomb Raider reboot came out with Alicia Vikander. And a lot of the review websites, I pulled my favorite headline that said, "The new Tomb Raider movie doesn't care about your boner." And And it was because, she has an average bust size, and the Tomb Raider video game, and then obviously the Lara Croft with Angelina Jolie, they really emphasized her bosom. And most recently, Jenny read our Jeopardy category clue for the category bosoms, which is why this is top of mind for me. So my question for you and Collin is, how important is it for Berlane's casting to reflect the physical description of her character, or is it important at all?
Jenny, you go first. Unless you want me to go first.
Okay. Well, I can, but I'm not a visual person. Like when I'm reading, I'm not picturing these people. Like they are generally faceless people with, like Perrin has a beard because they mention he has a beard 1,000 times. So he's a faceless person with a beard. Like that's, and Nynaeve is a faceless person with a braid because they mentioned she has a braid. So I don't visualize them. But Berlane does have to be sexy, but to me, that can be embodied in a performance more than like, if a person like with an amazing body goes on there, but they just stand there and don't do anything, that's not sexy. So I don't think she has to be like, super S-line is the Korean term. What's the Western term? Coke bottle, hourglass,
Yeah.
She doesn't like, if she's not that, but she is a person who is able to move in a certain way, like that to me is more sexy than just what she looks like. Plus, sometimes if you go just for the description, like there are characters, I talked about this in one of my videos, but there are characters there where the description is literally physically impossible.
Oh, yeah.
So
Perrin?
Yeah, Perrin.
Perrin, like it's physically impossible. So you can't, like, you just have to go with something that gives you the same feeling as what he was trying to evoke in the description. And I think Rafe is absolutely right. Performance is more important than appearance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there are three characters that present a similar issue. Like you have Berlane, Galad, and Lanfear, right? Like those characters present the problem of beauty, like in so much as how do you find someone who's gonna fit that description. And I think you're right. I think that it comes down a lot of it to the performance. Like if we're talking specifically about Berlane, I think that if you can find a performer who, is attractive but can exude that quality of know-how, of being in charge, of being a ruler, but also this seductive aspect, I think that's what's going to do it. Is if they can hit that particular mark, then I think it's going to be accepted. I think it's impossible to find. First of all, it's impossible to find an actor who's going to be, perfect for everyone who's watching the show.
That's
So that in and of itself answers the question. You just can't shoot for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have said this, but I feel bad for whoever gets cast in either any of those roles because there's going to be hate piled on them.
Totally.
No matter how gorgeous they are. It
doesn't matter.
No matter, like somebody's going to be like, well, no, she's not beautiful enough or he's not handsome enough.
Totally.
Well, that's really a shitty thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Lanfear, supposedly is beautiful, but she has the Terangriel that makes people convinced that she is the most beautiful woman in the world, overwhelmingly. So how do you convey that? And I think similar, like Berlane walks in a room and women feel insecure or jealous, and also so much of that is to do with the way she carries herself and her personality.
Some of that I also think has to do with how Robert Jordan thought women think. That's my interpretation of a lot. It's like a beautiful woman walks in the room and I'm like, oh, she's pretty, and then that's the end of my thoughts. Like I don't immediately go, oh, and I hate her.
You're like that blood feud. Yeah, right.
There's I think it's the part I think Anaya might be the one where every time she like walks into a room they mention how she's not pretty, but
Jane,
except when she smiles, her smile, and I hate it so much. And I'm like, women really, I mean, not that there aren't women that do that, but I think healthy people don't.
Yeah. Well, what I've said, like if it was a personality quirk of one or two of the women, that would be one thing. But it's so universal that it makes it feel much more like an 80s comedian. Like women be like hating on other people. That's what it feels like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was listening to Crowd of Swords in the bathtub last night, and there's a part where
of all the books to listen, were you listening to the bath scene? Wait, no, is that Crown of Swords? Anyway, sorry, that's Crossroads.
No,
Sorry.
I'm actually recording with Wheel of Time spoilers tomorrow, so I was reading a chapter for them. But there's a scene where Egwene walks into her Amyrlin tent, Amyrlin in Exile tent, and two of her ladies' maids are there, and she just has this whole inner monologue about them and just like how they're annoying or not too bright, and it's like, oh, this is why people don't like Egwene. Like, I look forward to seeing her on screen where we don't know anything that's going on in her head except what she performs, because I was like, yeah, this is very like condescending to other women, and she's dismissing them, and it's not cute. So won't miss that. But okay, in conclusion, Berylane could be of many body types, and her performance is essential.
Yeah,
that's my thought. Yeah.
I'll admit though, like the first time I read it, I just pictured Selma Hayek in Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn.
I can see that. Yeah,
but that was reading it. I'm not saying that's what I have to have on the TV show.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Now we'll go and talk about the Seanchan. I do want to talk about Tuon and Mat today, but first I thought it would be fun just to, maybe fun isn't the right word, but talk about the Seanchan society. And I feel like it is introduced all the way in The Great Hunt. We start to get glimpses of the Seanchan, and I feel like Robert Jordan has so much time to really dive into the world building of the Seanchan, and there is additional background in the companions, although sometimes I wish there was more, and so I look forward to what the show brings to that. But not every nation do we get so much time with and glimpses into, so I think they're fascinating in that way, and just the texture of everything. And Jenny, you have two, I'm sure you have more, but you have two really great YouTube videos, so anyone listening should check it out. But the one where you talk about how the Seanchan enslave women who can channel and how that is dealt with in the books. And the other video I loved is you talking about Tuon and Mat. So we'll get to that a bit later. But I'm curious, how well do you two know your Seanchan history?
I mean, I don't know. I don't imagine it's that great.
Now, I thought I'd give us a little history recap overview so we could talk about their society today, meaning the society we get in the books before the last battle. But so back in the day, Seanchan was a tapestry of nations, and they were characterized by a lot of power grabbing and assassination. So there was infighting, almost like Almouth Plain, where like nothing is just a powder keg. And so Aes Sedai actually went over there and got involved, and in a way the Aes Sedai do not like to be seen today, they were power hungry, and they even tried to grab thrones. They would be assassinated sometimes, and they were just real players, but I think they tried to hide any such behavior. You don't see Aes Sedai grabbing thrones because that would be too scary in the Westlands. But over in Seanchan, they were doing this, and so they garnered a lot of resentment because obviously they had the one power to help them on their journey to power. So then over in the Westlands, we have Hawkwing and his son Luthair Pendrag. So Hawkwing wants to expand his empire. He sends Luthair over to Seanchan, and in his mind, Luthair's gonna add Seanchan to the empire. What ends up happening is that Hawkwing's empire crumbles over time, and so Luthair has a different idea that Seanchan will be formed into a great empire itself, and then someday return to the Westlands to reclaim it. And that's how we have the Return or the Quran. What I thought was interesting is that while Luthair was trying to do that, he at first had a lot of disdain for the power-hungry Aes Sedai, but that eventually turned to hatred. And so that's how you get him sort of going on a campaign against them and even exploiting and subverting some of them to develop the Adam. And from that, Damani. It's unknown, but they think that the Soldam, back when they were originated, when they were like building the system, that Lutheran people were somewhat aware that Soldam were women who could learn to channel, whereas the enslaved women who can channel had the spark inborn. Right. So they did have that original knowledge, and there was intention behind this. It wasn't, and obviously, I think out of choice, forgotten over time. And from that is how grew the caste system that we see today. There's the Dakoval, which are anyone who is property in the old tongue. And then slightly above that are merchants. And then you have the Sojin, who are upper servants. You have the army, but then you have the Death Watch guards who protect the blood. And then you have Seekers of Truth, who are kind of like the White Cloak questioners. And then those who are of the blood. So we know that the Empress herself and her children are direct descendants of the Luther bloodline. There are also people who are of the blood who were just of his close followers in the beginning. And so that's why they keep close watches on kind of this lineage. And that's also why there's very little upward mobility. And one of the things I thought was interesting is that, the return, that helps us understand the return in that everyone sees, oh my God, there is a chance for some upward mobility because of this like fresh start we're getting and this campaign we're going on. So I think we see that kind of in the ranks of the army and people trying to gain favor or maybe positions over in the Westlands, because usually it's know your place and don't question it. So anyway, not to sugarcoat it, but that's kind of the overview of how we got from Luther Pendrag to today. And also, I think why they harbor such disgust for women who can channel.
I have a question, actually. The item, when it was created, was it like Luther? Was Arthur Hawkwing not involved in that at all? Or
No.
did that happen?
Hawkwing wasn't involved because he wasn't in Seanchan.
Okay, so.
I believe, and I'll fact check this, but I believe it was Luther himself who saw that, but his line kind of ruled for, I think, a couple hundred years before, like, actual empire was in full motion. It took time, so it could have been his son's. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it happened during Luther's lifetime. I think it happened afterward.
Luther Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just pretty crazy. But one facet of the system that I'm drawn to is the Death Watch guards. And I think it's so fascinating. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people in Seanchan, they are so brainwashed to be committed to their role. And the Death Watch guards have an honored place in society more so than most people. And so, like we see with Kareed, right, that he's super loyal to Tuon and protecting her. Yeah. But we also see Ogier Death Watch guards, which I wanted to pause on for a second and just talk about the Seanchan Ogier, because there's not a lot of info, but I thought it would be fun to speculate on.
I made a video where I just like questions that I want to know more about, and that's one of them. It's like, what the heck happened over in Seanchan, where like in the Westlands, the Ogier or the Ogier, you're pronouncing it differently.
No, I say both, so Ogier's fine.
Yeah. But the Ogier in the Westlands are like peaceful, loving. They just grow things, and whereas in Seanchan, they're in the army. What the heck happened over there? I have no speculations. I just want to know.
I mean, based on like what it says about the gardeners and the companion, like because of the infighting of the Aes Sedai, that kind of created a culture of, I mean, there was already a culture of like people vying for power in that like kind of expansive land in general. Because the power that the Aes Sedai held, the setting became coveted. So the people or the beings who lived in the setting were coveted because the Aes Sedai had no sway there.
Yeah, of course,
right.
yeah.
So I think that it became in the way that everyone's vying for power, they're also looking for that land. So the Ogier became militarized out of necessity to protect
themselves.
themselves, exactly, yeah. So I think that because like in the Westlands, everyone kind of, for the most part, if they even believe in Ogier, they respect them or they're afraid of them. Whereas that wasn't happening on the other side. So the Ogier had to become militarized in that way, I think, and kind of more vicious, I suppose, than we see in the Westlands.
I'm also just curious as to how, like, I asked this question, and the answer I got was that just the Aes Sedai were concentrated in the Westlands. I still don't fully understand. That doesn't make sense to me. But sorry, my question, I haven't even gotten to my question yet. But the breaking, when it happened, it messed up the world, and so the Ogier now are tied, in the Westlands are tied to the steading. Because apparently all the male Aes Sedai were just in the Westlands. They weren't in Seanchan, so the Seanchan didn't get messed up and the steading didn't get lost. Like,
yeah, I don't. That part's fuzzy to me.
It doesn't make sense. Why were they all in one continent?
I did wonder why they did not have the longing like the Ogier, because it would be interesting if the Seanchan Ogier, reach their breaking point during the Corinne, and they're like, we gotta go on vacation, and they just show up at like Steading Sofu, and Steading Sofu's like, what the fuck, like
exactly. But the answer apparently, like, I got so many comments, just they were just not in Seanchan. I'm like, why?
That doesn't make sense.
Why?
Yeah, totally.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
I know. I do have a lot of questions about them, but I think it's interesting your point, Collin, about the necessity of them becoming militarized. Because I don't think there is or has been any point in which the Aes Sedai have acknowledged their role in who the Seanchan are today. I think they learn later about who created the Idom, because obviously it wasn't a non-channeling person that created the Idom. Their attitudes have definitely contributed negatively in a lot of ways throughout history.
But I think that, like, even the Aes Sedai that were in Seanchan, I hesitate to call them Aes Sedai, but I guess they are, because it's descending from, but they didn't have a tower, right? To kind of, like, to keep them under control, or to, like,
it's
have
the
some
Wild
old
West.
oaths. Yeah, exactly.
They're
just like
they were independent.
Exactly. They're like free agent Aes Sedai out there, like, terrorizing people with the one power.
I think we just wrote a spin-off, because it's like
it's possible.
I want to see Deadwood, but in Seanchan, just the early Seanchan.
And like it even could be, I mean, like, just speculating, but it would be the ones who had those kind of aspirations who would have gone there, right? So it might not even be, you could, like, make a whole statement about the Aes Sedai. It would be the Aes Sedai who didn't fit in with the other Aes Sedai were like, let me go over there, where I don't have to obey or, like, follow these rules. So it's, you can't really. I have no idea. This is all pure headcanon that I am making up on the spot. But like,
I guess I would just say you don't have to stretch your imagination to see how they behave there, because their behavior hasn't changed that much. All of them, they're just better at concealing their actions and motives, but the way they dispense with people, I don't love. I guess. So we're just talking about society, and their structure that we see today when they arrive on the shores of the Westlands, because we see all the different ranks play out. And we get a lot of amazing characters as well as creatures. I think that is a really cool part of the world building, and the way their creatures play into the army, with the Grom and the Rockin and Tarakan. Is there anything you either of you wanted to talk about on this subject that interests you about, the structure of their society?
I think it's interesting the way that the manner in which Seanchan was, when Luther went over there and kind of like took over and established an empire. It's interesting to me the way that happened, the way that informs Seanchan culture. For example, the kind of way that I think it's mentioned that the Grom and the Chrome and the Rockin, Torakin, those were all creatures from the Portalstone like realms, from the Portalstone planes.
Oh, yeah.
And they were kind of like, they were already over there, so they just kind of like absorbed them into their own, as they took over, they kind of absorbed them into their own society, and they became part of the culture, in the same way that, in a similar way that kind of like the hatred of Aes Sedai kind of morphed into this kind of this enslaved thing, right? Like, it's interesting to me the way the culture evolved, the way kind of Jordan saw, like, okay, this the way this will play out, you know. They do this for a few hundred years, and then this turns into this, and this turns into this. I think that's an interesting thing to me, like to see how that came to fruition. In addition to also the way that when the Seanchan come over to the Westlands, the freedom that they give people who swear the oaths, I feel like all of that kind of stems from the creation of their culture over in Seanchan when they were isolated. I thought that was really interesting, personally.
One of the things I find interesting about, like, it's comparing and contrasting the Aiel and the Seanchan. I feel like both of them had an evolution of their society that got to a point, and then they just stopped, where they were like, this far, and that's it. We're not going to change, like, we're not going to go beyond this and evolve
Right.
into anything other than a warrior society where we just, the only reason we don't kill each other is because of a rule that we've made up that makes that not okay. And the Seanchan got to a point and they just also stopped. And
yeah.
they both also have this idea of, like, when the Aiel interact with people outside of their culture, they just don't understand that people don't understand their culture. And the Seanchan have that, but they also have it where they don't care. Whereas the Aiel are just like genuinely perplexed. Like, what do you mean you can't just become first sisters? What? Right. Whereas the Seanchan are just like, they don't care that you don't know.
Right.
They, it's
The
the
Aiel,
same
like,
kind of additive. Yeah.
They like maintain a curiosity, whereas the Seanchan are just like, no, we're right, you're wrong. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Although the Aiel do that a bit too. I mean, like,
That's
one
true,
guy
yeah.
did get killed for having tattoos. So, like,
Right.
the wrong tattoos, granted,
Right.
but like, trying to explain to him, in this culture, if you don't like somebody's tattoos, we don't kill them. Is
Right,
like,
right.
a thing that maybe, it's just, they're both very, like, both of these cultures, the ones he spent the most time on that were not like Andor or whatever, are
Sure.
both cultures with very strict and very separate ideas where they just don't seem to, it's hard for them both to see past each other. The Seanchan have the added imperialism and expansionism and just superiority that, I don't know. The Aiel also, I have a bit of a thing with the Aiel. I like Aiel people. I think their culture gets a pass in ways that it shouldn't get.
Yeah.
I personally think.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, I think we can definitely not give a pass to the Seanchan.
Nobody.
One point you raised, Collin, is the disparity between the freedom they grant the people that they govern, who are non-channeling people. And I think, part of why their culture hasn't evolved is that they built such rigid ranks that any dissension is just so swiftly put out. And everyone lives in fear, pretty much. No one's going to speak out because they'll probably just be immediately killed. They're also very effective at killing, even, like, everyone is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm trying to think of any, I mean, there are other fantasy genres, or other fantasy stories, but the Seanchan have been enslaving women who can channel for so long that the scale of it is horrifying. In that it's like, if this has been going on for at least like 100 years, they don't miss they don't miss anyone. Like, they get everyone, and that is like...
And the Seanchan actually solved a problem that the Westlands have, where, like, they can find people who have the potential to learn.
Right.
Which in the Westlands, like, those women just get missed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the Seanchan inadvertently solved a problem.
Right.
the White Tower...
No, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The White Tower is just horrible administrators. Like, we talked about the Ajas and which one we were cut, and we're like, none of them are working hard enough. Like, we really need...
The fact that they don't recruit, just like, why wouldn't you do that?
Right, they're like...
Right, it's interesting, like, that no one ever made a Terangriel that just looks for women who could learn, right? Like
Yes,
it's like they were like, let's skip to putting shackles on them. Like what you could have just find out if they can learn. Like I'm sure someone is interested in that, right?
I mean, everyone is better at finding channelers than the White Tower. The Black Tower.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
They're just so bad at it. It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's utterly absurd. And they're all like sitting up there like, why are our numbers dwindling?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does somebody need to fuck a still man? I don't know. Like, that's the only solution we can think of.
Oh my god.
It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, Aes Sedai incompetence, I feel like it. I don't remember my first read that well, but I feel like the more that I read The Wheel of Time, the more glaring it is how their hubris and arrogance have actually shielded them from doing the work and being effective, and instead of just projecting that they're important and wise and effective, and they get shown up by literally like every society, by the kid, by everyone else is surpassing them. And so it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz effect almost with them, where you see behind the curtain. And so I hope that's less obvious on the show.
Yeah.
I
think, I don't know, there's something, as absurd as it is, there's something real about it. Like, now that I'm thinking, I know, Jamie, you watched it. Jenny, I don't know if you watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you finish it?
Yes.
Okay. Potential spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But when I think about the Aes Sedai, I think they need someone to give them a speech like Sam did at the end of the show. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, look, you guys have all this power, but you're not thinking about the right things. Like, you're not doing this right, So it makes sense. That's why what I'm saying is like, it's absurd, but it also makes sense, like, because people actually do that,
Yeah. That was my thought at the end of the. Okay, I mean, full spoilers, I'm assuming, for the whole series.
Go for it.
Yeah. Like, at the end, when, this is the biggest spoiler ever, when Egwene died, like, my first thought was not like, oh, I'm so sad that Egwene died. My first thought was, oh, shit, she's the one who had all the good ideas.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
And they just died with her. I have no idea if Cad Swain is going to do that. I have no clue.
No, she seems
Oh my
horrible.
god,
Like,
no.
just to do the same
Cad
shit,
Swain
yeah.
is not who they need after.
Yeah.
I mean, she is more... More of the same. Like, she embodies.
The only hope I have that she might leave some of the stuff Egwene put in place is because she doesn't want to be Amyrlin. So she'd be just like, that's okay, fine, whatever, I don't want to touch it.
Right.
Like, that's the only hope I have for this thing that's fictional, and I shouldn't really care what happens because it's not real and it didn't happen. But
We should all care deeply. And we all do.
like, that was my first thought is, oh God, no.
Well, on a lighter
sorry.
note, Tuon, just kidding. So, Jenny, on your channel, you talked a little bit about how you can't help but like Tuon as a character. Not that you condone or approve of any of her actions, but I'd love if you just speak a little bit toward that, or like your own point of view on Tuon.
I think she's like she, in my opinion, is one of the better written characters. Like, just the way he developed her character and her personality. I don't know how, like, I love that when we were getting to know her when she's traveling with the circus, I assumed that we were building up a redemption story. So I let myself get invested in this person and what she was learning and growing and changing. And I thought I was so excited to see when she would like, oh, I've been wrong and now I'm good. Like, I was really excited for that.
Oh.
And I liked her intelligence. I thought she was a good match. Like, not necessarily romantically, although I did kind of like her and Mat, like the way they sort of bounced off each other. I thought it was good, but she was a good match personality-wise for him.
Right.
I really liked that. And then when she didn't, learn, like she didn't want to change, and she was even firmer in her belief, like even after she's been told, like, you have the ability to channel, she was like, I just choose not to, so I'm better than the people who are born with the spark, so they have no choice. Like, it's so ridiculous. But that attitude that she had, like, it hurt. And that to me is that's good writing.
It's good writing.
Like, I was hurt by the fact that this person that I was like, I wanted wanted her to grow, and I was rooting for her. Like, you know, insert that Tyra Banks gif. I was rooting for you. Like, that's,
how dare you?
Exactly. Like, it hurt, but it's realistic.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You know, tell people, you give people all the lessons, and then you say, okay, now you know why it's wrong. Please give up your power. Like, no, it's a very realistic thing, and I liked it. Like, I liked it as a story.
Yeah.
I obviously don't like it as a human being who doesn't want people to be enslaved in a fictional world. Again, it's not real, but as a storytelling, I thought it hit me hard, and I think that's a good sign.
Very effective, yeah, for sure.
Collin, do you want to respond to that or give your own thoughts on Tuon?
Yeah, I mean, I too enjoy Tuon as a character. I think she's when she's introduced, I feel like, I mean, there are a billion characters in the books, but I feel like when she's introduced, it's obviously something new. We're seeing this kind of this noble character from this this culture that we're being introduced to a certain degree, and we're learning kind of more about her. And I agree. Like, I think that Jordan puts us on this path where we believe that this could be a redemption story, right? We believe, okay, Matt's gonna show her like how she's wrong and like what life could or should be like or whatever, right?
And Egwene like is gonna, you know, drop that bomb about the Sul'dam and everything will fall into place.
Yeah, we're like, okay, great, like this is gonna be fixed. This is awesome. Last battle's coming. Yeah. Yeah, like, and then, you know, we're gonna absorb Seanchan, everything's gonna be peachy, you know. But yeah, the fact that doesn't happen is, in terms of literary effect, it's really good, you know. It sucks, and I think that's the part that makes it I guess realistic in a way. The fact that like things don't work out, you know, the way that you think they're going to work out, and while her reasoning for not changing is absurd, it's also real. Like, people do that shit. Like, people just kind of dismiss what they don't want to believe or think about, you know.
I've had conversations with, you know, I mean, we have 2 Black people in this chat. Like, I've had this conversation not about slavery, obviously, but about privilege and stuff with people, and they'll like acknowledge everything and then get to a point and be like, yeah, but I'm not gonna like do anything. Like, no, I'm not gonna do anything that jeopardizes my privilege personally. Like, it's a realistic response.
Totally.
Yeah, it is realistic. I think you mentioned this part, Jenny, but when Tuon acknowledges I feel like it's just once, maybe she acknowledges that maybe she could learn, but she won't, and she already starts setting in place these walls and justifications for why she's different. And I feel like we all see that it's a house of cards that's going to crumble, you know, after the last battle and with Min and Mat around. And I feel like it's also realistic that maybe change will start after the last battle, but it'll probably take a really long time, just like the system to, like, it won't fall in a day. But we hope that it does eventually. But yeah, she hangs on to power, and she is, I would say, an effective leader for her people. And it's hard sometimes to separate, like, thinking about how we view her, I view her, and then sometimes I try to think about how her people view her within that society, because it is said that she's kind of adored by at least like her Death Watch guards and her voice and Truth Speaker, and people come into contact with her because she, in terms of serving the Empire, is extremely effective and maintaining the system, you know, that we are opposed to. But yeah, I don't know. Why do you think people as a leader within Seanchan adore her and love her?
One of the things that makes a character likable, like a villain or a hero, is the competence. And she's incredibly competent at what she does. Like, everything. Like, she's good at stones. She's good at riding a horse. She's good at fighting. She's good at sparring verbally with Mat. She's good at being a leader. She's competent. She's good at her job. And so... yeah,
she's incredibly clever.
Like her.
Yeah, I think as a character, I think you're right, Jenny. Like, she's so competent. She can do all of these things and do them so well. it endears you to her, you know, in a way, and the way that she kind of like treats Mat, who we're kind of like, yeah, beat up on Mat, that's fun, you know, like, and it's this strange thing because you're watching this character, you're coming to like this character who, you know, something about that is disgusting, and then every once in a while they show you that mask, they show you that disgusting face, and you're like, oh God, but you play Stone so well, you know, it's this weird kind of like. It's this weird back and forth with the character that kind of pulls you in one direction and then the other direction constantly, which I think builds up to that, what we were talking about, that kind of, is this going to work or isn't this going to work in terms of the destruction of the Seanchan culture, you know?
I mean, I have a whole post-book headcanon where it falls, but that's a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's hear that.
Well, first of all, we have Min, and Min is there in this working with the Seanchan. And Elida is there, and Mat is there. Sorry, and of course there's also Egianin. Egianin and Bail Domon are a big part of my post-book headcanon, because Egianin is like one who she actually knows it's wrong and wants to. She thinks it should be fixed.
Yeah.
So I can see her in my mind. It's not as fleshed out in detail as
you don't have to write the book, but yeah,
it's okay.
Exactly. But it starts off with an underground railroad that would start off with Min, sending people through the smuggling that Bail Domon already has in place.
Right.
With Egianin, Elida would be one of the people that would get freed that way. Moghedien also is captured, and I think Moghedien's going to free herself so fucking quickly. It's not even going to be hard for her to get away from this.
Right. That's true. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And she would hate the Seanchan. So I think she would be so fascinating in a post-book story because, of course, she's evil, but the Dark One has been imprisoned, so she knows that there's no reason to. So she's a complete wild card. You have no idea what side she's on ever, because she no longer has the hope of eternal life, because that's gone.
Right.
The Dark One's been imprisoned. And she hates the Seanchan, but she also hates Nynaeve. She's a complete wild card.
Everybody. Yeah.
She hates everybody. But she would be on the side of freeing the Damane, because she thinks that's bullshit. I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, you have the Underground Railroad, and then of course Mat just every day having to be encountering slavery. One of the things I have with Mat, a lot of people dislike him by the end because of the fact that he doesn't say anything to Tuon. And the way I get around that is I think of it as him being really immature. I actually the way I described him 3 days ago was he's Kevin Costner in Hidden Figures in the books. He's the guy who's hey, this one black person I know is being affected by this one thing, and I'm going to fix this one thing that helps this one black person and doesn't help anybody else, because that's it.
Right.
Because it's touching him personally. Every Damani that he helps in the books is one that touched him personally. He doesn't actually help anybody else.
Right.
But daily having to encounter slaves every day, in my mind, in post-book headcanon, opens him up to that. And so he would start working with Min and Egianin, and there would be a whole crumbling. And then somehow in this, I want Tuon to get collared. I really, really want that to happen. and
I think that's an imperative. Yeah,
an imperative.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not that fleshed out, but in my mind, part of the reason I think that this could happen more quickly in the post book is because I know that Robert Jordan planned to write an Outrigger novel about Tuon and Mat, and I cannot conceive of what else that story could possibly be about.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would have been about. Absolutely.
It's not the plot of The Little Mermaid 2, where Tuon and Mat just have babies and raise them in the...
Exactly. So he had to have something planned in that regard.
Absolutely.
So...
I wish Harry would talk about that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It would be.
I do think in this book that we're writing, that Tuon would be pregnant, and that would present also a quandary for Mat to struggle against.
That's a good addition.
That's important. Yeah.
I also think Matt's the type of character who, he likes to make friends and would probably start affecting the culture in small ways, in just the way he would interact with his body servant or the tailor. And we get a glimpse of when he's being dressed and has all these attendants. And I think it's probably one of the reasons people start to not like Mat also because he just like has to kind of go along with it and wear this garb or whatever. But I think if he's there as like a fixture, he's gonna start to have an impact and have like relationships with people of different ranks that other people wouldn't. And he's just Mat, so he's able to do it, and that's gonna be like, I gotta get you on the Underground Railroad, and like Min's gonna be in his ear. So I think that all makes sense. But
I think it would be like similar to the relationship that I've forgotten the Aes Sedai's name, but the relationship, not the circumstances, but just the relationship itself that Egwene has with the Mistress of Novices when she goes back to the tower, and she's the Amyrlin, but she's a novice, and then she raises that woman to her
Sylviana.
Yeah, Sylviana. Thank you. Their relationship is obviously this woman is the Mistress of Novices, and Elaine is seen as a novice, but the way that they interact with one another causes Sylviana to kind of change the way she thinks about things, and I see that happening with like the way Mat interacts with these characters, the way like Tuon would behave with them as opposed to the way Mat would behave with them will kind of force them over time to think about things differently, right? I think that would be interesting.
Do you think it ends?
This sounds like a great book.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking, I was thinking, how does it end? I think it ends like Game of Thrones, like Jon Snow just killing Daenerys. Like Tuon will definitely try to have him assassinated, like 7 Ways to Sunday, and then he'll probably have to kill her in the end. Then it'll be horrible for him.
Does Mat take the Crystal Throne?
I don't know if I ever thought about him killing her. I just thought like this Seanchan, the kingdom crumbled. That was like my thought. It just sort of crumbled into nothing. Because that's the other thing that I don't know. I'm pretty sure that this is canon, that the actual continent of Seanchan is in shambles.
Oh yeah, that is. It's just the lands they hold, I think, is how.
Yeah, it's just So it's just in the Westlands, and so I feel like that would crumble as. Like, as they start to lose their Damani, because that Damani is what gives them their political power.
Yeah,
totally.
All right, maybe Mat doesn't kill her.
He might. I mean,
he could.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, totally.
She would definitely try to have someone assassinate him. And they would definitely tumble. Also, I mean, I just wonder if they have kids, say, it takes time. I can see like teenage, mini Empress in the making having different minds influencing her, so maybe someone could take the reins and change things. I don't know. Yeah. Interesting. It was a good book.
Yes. But all of that, like, that is why I don't get so mad at him at the end, because in my mind, his story isn't finished. Like, this is like the middle part of his story. The rest of them, their stories kind of end there in my head, but Mat's is that it's still going.
Yeah.
It's also like the reason why I agree with a lot of the fan talk about Min as a sexy lamp, but it also doesn't bother me because I feel like, again, she was going to be a big part of the next story.
Right.
So
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's another quality of Seanchan or Tuon that I like, is that her reading of the omens, just as a part of the world building and how they give so much importance to like signs and things like that. Did you, when you were first reading, did you foresee that Min would have this kind of role? Like, was there any...
Not at all. I did once make a connection between what Min saw and the omens, but I thought it was like, oh, that's like a cool little like Easter egg that he's put in there for us.
Right.
That's literally as far as my brain took it. Did you? Like,
I didn't. I think my mind was diverted by the Finns, because like the sort of omens or foretellings, if you will, that Mat gets are not from Min. They're from the Finns. And so that sort of, I just didn't expect it. And then I was really excited when it happened, but I was like, oh, like, couldn't they met earlier? Because I'm tired of Min just reading books in breeches and flirting with Rand. Like...
Sitting on his lap.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have that, Collin?
No, I actually didn't. I didn't put it together. When it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that.
Yeah. That's where that was going. Okay.
Yeah. What I liked about the way she talked about the omens, because it just made me laugh. It was such a, like, it's very, again, a realistic but hilarious world building thing where she's like, oh, this Taviran, this
Right.
pattern nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, we're all so superstitious. Oh no, I have to throw this rock because I saw an owl.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
It's good. Yeah, you're right. I mean, when it comes to
Yeah.
like building an interesting character, it's a nice kind of contrast to her competence. Is like this
Yeah.
belief in something arbitrary, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
But it
essentially
turns out it's not arbitrary.
I mean, it feels arbitrary because like she's saying
We-
like
we-
Taviran's nothing, but this is something, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think my headcanon is that they're both something.
Yes, I
But
agree with
either
you.
side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just another, symptom of Seanchan like having such a firm belief system that it just constantly shows you any new information is rejected. It's like, that doesn't match what I know, even if it's, okay, I guess I've seen a Trolloc now, so they exist, but I don't believe you that, like, Myrddraal
forgot they didn't
exists.
believe
And
the
it's
Trollocs.
like,
Right. Yeah.
like, they have to see it to believe it. And even then, they just try to sort of backpedal. Like,
That was something that bothered me too. Like, there are no shadow spawn over there. Like, what? the
Yeah.
fuck? Like,
Yeah.
how, why?
How is it that?
How is it
happened?
that there are no shadow spawn over there? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
do you think
weird.
it's because they were traveling by the ways and they don't have the ways in Seanchan and they don't like water, so maybe they're not keen
I
on
don't know.
boats?
Yeah, they wouldn't go over
Yeah.
the water. The only way they could have gotten there before. Well, okay, was Seanchan separated before the breaking?
I don't know if we know that.
Yeah.
I would have to say.
I don't
I would
know.
say that they were connected before the break. At least, like, you could traverse.
Yeah.
You know.
You must have been able to traverse there.
Yeah.
But Shadow Spawn can't use traveling.
Yeah.
So like they
Right.
can't go through a way gate. So the only way they could get there is through the ways or through natural
Yeah.
means.
I mean, they have Drakkar. Like,
What are they gonna
Drakkar could fly
fly?
over.
Oh, fly over
Yes,
there.
just, Drakkar
Yeah.
just carry a Myrddraal
Yeah,
over the ocean.
take Drakkar and like carry 2 Trollocs over there and just start
Just
a whole
like-
holiday. Like,
Just like an
Did you
eagle
see
and
that?
Frodo.
Did you see that?
yeah.
I was thinking of like the video I just saw of a seagull with another seagull standing there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think, okay, to be fair, like, I think that is a ridiculous thing to conceive of, but if you're the Dark One and you have
Yeah.
3,000 years to, like, come up with a plan to destroy the world, you would do that shit. I would.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Or recruit them like they did Shara,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's ridiculous to me that there are no shadow spawn on that
Yeah.
whole continent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at least the Forsaken get involved with the Seanchan.
Right.
But it is, weird that there's not more of an effort made by the Shadow to make them a player.
Everything
you know?
is focused on the Westland.
Yeah, but even when
Everything's focused on the
they're like
Westlands.
settled in the Westlands, like I guess it's just that's like Semirog's like one job and she fucks it up. Like,
right. To, like, go over there and, like, yeah. that's
Yeah.
true.
Well, the two Forsaken that did, I think, like the most damage, not necessarily in regards to the last battle, but to the world in general, were Semirog and
Demandred,
Demandred.
yeah.
And they did it off screen.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
really like
It's true.
I know.
happened
true.
off
I mean, I
screen.
think we all want Demandred to have more screen time. Like, they need
Yeah.
to earn the whole Shara plot line. Even if it's still a
Yeah.
surprise at the end, it should be in the last season, like, at the least.
Yeah.
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 I agree with that. Yeah.
It's just a rumor before that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I'd like to see Shara in the post Last Battle world to see what happens.
What's going on over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they like follow the prophecy of a literal Forsaken.
Yeah, are they all dark friends? Like, what's going on with
Like,
that place?
seriously,
Like,
like, that's, yeah, exactly. The entire nation of dark friends?
Yeah, I was thinking about
What?
that. I was like, are they just all dark? Like, what? How does that
Well,
work?
yeah, I mean, you would think they'd figure it out because even though he goes by the Willed or what have you,
Yeah.
I feel like he just tricked them is what we're supposed to believe. But it's like
don't know.
you're
That sounds
fighting
like
alongside a
ignorance.
bunch of Shadow Spawn against humans. So
Yeah, right.
He might, because he might have tricked them, but also he did actually fulfill their prophecy.
Right.
Like, he did
Right.
actually do it. Now, he went and read their prophecy and then did the prophecy.
right,
Right.
But does prophecy care that you
Right.
actually fulfilled the prophecy because you read the prophecy?
Yeah.
I know.
Like,
They're,
it's weird.
yeah,
though.
they need to
Yeah.
earn that a little more. There's a lot of question marks around that, but
Absolutely.
yeah, it's in contrast the Seanchan, we get so much information about them. It's like the opposite, but But I did want to just touch on Mat and Tuon and that romance. Because Jenny, I know one of the things you talked about is that Robert Jordan doesn't do intimate relationship development particularly well. And this is an instance between Mat and Tuon where we get to spend some time, I think, watching it unfold. And I, as a fan, I think like I was rooting for it in a weird way because it was well written.
Yeah, it's like there's Lan and Nynaeve, and then there's Mat and Tuon are the romantic relationships that I actually believe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating, of course, that it's this one because then, it's Tuon, but yeah, I like one of like a member of my Discord is an actual romance novel writer, and I was like, I don't know why this works for me, and she's like, well, it totally makes sense to me as somebody who does this for a living.
Yeah,
it's that forced together, but then you have to figure out why, and if destiny is right. Like it makes sense. The story, like it's a trope, but it's a trope for a reason.
Yeah,
like it actually works.
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't know. I like their relationship, and I don't know what else to say.
There's something I think that's as humans reading stories, there's something that's pleasing about reading, about these two characters who are both highly competent, and there's something fundamental between them that is discordant, right? And kind of hoping for that thing to be resolved and finding out whether or not that's going to be resolved. And in this case, it isn't, unfortunately. But I think that's the thing in a way,
Yeah.
And in the same way that we're kind of wondering whether or not Lan and Nynaeve will actually be able to be together,
Yes.
Like we know they love each other from day one, but like, are they going to be able to get together?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will, like, for me, what he started doing over and over again was the whole they hate each other because they're in love.
Right.
He did that, I think, 3 times for it. I got really tired of it.
Yeah.
By the time we got to Gareth Brennan's Tuon, I was just like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. Like, this is nonsense. So having like a relationship build up that was not started with animosity was nice. Like it was, they're trying to figure out if they like each other. Like they're literally dating. Like that's what dating is. Like they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like watching this.
I think because they're two such strong characters also, it's fun to see the supporting cast, if you will, around them as their relationships developing, like Tom and Selusha and even Oliver in his role in like getting in the way. But all those scenes kind of in the little like her wagon or cabin or whatever are just fun to watch the tension and nuance of how they're both trying to navigate flirting and courtship. It is fun and entertaining. And by the time you get to Mat getting the Damani razor, you're like, oh my God, is she going to love it? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
So, you can't help yourself. I mean, I love that part every time. And then she Lady Godiva's off on the horse and he's like, oh my God, she's going to kill me. It's like sitcom territory. It's so good. But well, hopefully they grow old together and Mat teaches her some lessons and changes society.
Or apparently he kills her.
Or he kills her, Jon Snow style, in my version of the book. We can have a few different endings.
Yeah, that would be your version, Jamie.
Yes.
We should ask Twitter of Time, how does Mat and Tuon's relationship end? Like, period. Is it old age, assassination? Like...
And which one?
Yeah.
Does Mat get murdered by Tuon or does Tuon get murdered by Mat?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Isn't it traditional that once she has children to like try to kill the Prince of Ravens? Is not like part of honeymoon or something?
Sure
Like a praying mantis?
Assassination is part of wasn't there somebody in her court who was sending bumbling assassins after her? Because if he didn't send any, it would be disrespectful.
Right.
Disrespectful, yeah.
Oh my
He's
God.
like, I actually like you, but I have to do this thing, I have to try to kill you.
It's hilarious.
Wow.
So much entertainment in the Seanchan court.
Wow.
So weird.
Well, this has been a wonderful and wild conversation. Jenny, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
For everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe below. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Randland.